Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukmiva Vandhanan Mrityor Mokshiyamamritat. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'd like to introduce introduce to you Kirit Bhai Modi. Kirit Bhai Modi is himself a kidney transplant recipient, and he has been involved in promoting organ donations and supporting kidney patients for many years. Since his retirement as an education officer. He's currently president of the National Kidney Federation. He's also the chair of Jain Hindu Organ Donation Steering Group. He is the founding member of National BAME Transplant Alliance. And Kirit Bhai has frequently spoken at the all-party parliamentary group to highlight concerns about organ donation with BAME communities. And he has received, during Theresa May's tenure as Prime Minister, Points of Life Award for his work on organ donation. So, Kirit Bhai, over to you. Welcome to this event.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chaben, for a very generous introduction. Can I start by saying Jai Shri Krishna to everyone? And I'm really honored to be able to talk about organ donation on this very important day, which Harshaben mentioned earlier. And I want to start by thanking Harshaben for the invitation, also to Trupti Ben, who has been a long-term supporter of organ donation. And I see that Bhavna Ben is also there. So I've spoken with Bhavna Ben as well. So Hindu Forum of Britain has been a long-term supporter of organ donation. I'm really grateful for that. If we could look at the first slide, please.
I'm just going to share slides now.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Can you see?
I can't at the moment.
Okay, just coming up.
Thank you.
Looks like some problem with the slide. Harshaji, can you share from your PC?
No, I can't because I haven't downloaded it. You go ahead.
Perhaps I'll just make a start while we're trying to sort out the technical issues there. Can I first say that, as we know, there are two ways of donating organs. We can donate our organs as living donors, and as living donors, usually we donate our kidneys, but we can also, thank you very much. So that's just the introduction. If you just look at the next one, please. So as I was saying, two ways of donating organs. As living donors, we can donate our kidneys. That's the most common. We can also donate part of our liver, but mostly it's kidneys. In fact, I received my transplant from my wife as a living donor many years ago. And obviously we can donate after we pass away. And then there are a number of organs we can donate depending on how good those organs are. And obviously it's the doctors who decide which are the suitable organs for donation at that critical time. So you can donate our heart, lungs, kidneys, pancreas, and so on. So realistically, we can in fact save many lives through donation. That's why organ donation is sometimes called the gift of life. If you turn to the next slide, please. Now, I'm sure most of you know that the law on organ donation has changed in England. In fact, it changed in Wales some years ago, and England has just changed it, and the actual change happened on the 20th of May, so the law is now changed. And Scotland are planning to change that next year. So it's going to go across most of the UK. And I'm very pleased to say that when this law went through Parliament, it had support from all the parties. It's not a party political issue. So I really want to thank people like Teresa Villiers and others for the amazing support the MPs and the peers in the Lords gave. It really went through very smoothly, because some of us were quite concerned when the law was going through. And what the law basically says is that all adults in England will be considered to have agreed to be an organ donor when they die. So this is about donation after death. It's not about living donation. Unless there are two exceptions, that they have registered a decision not to donate. So you have a perfect right to say, I don't wish to donate, and that decision will be respected. Or you're in an excluded group. And I'll just quickly go through the excluded group, what you'd expect as a normal excluded group. So the law is called different names. It's called opt-out, it's called deemed consent. It's also called Max and Kira's law. So you'll see all these terms being used. And the excluded group are obviously children are excluded if you're under 18. People who lack the capacity to understand the change, perhaps people with learning difficulties, they're excluded. People who have lived in England for less than 12 months, so perhaps people here on a short-term visa or tourists and so on, clearly they're not included. And those who don't live here voluntarily, and particularly this affects prisoners who don't have a choice as to where they're kept. So this is a big change from, so it's called opt-out, so that unless you opt out, it will be considered that you have agreed to be an organ donor. But the important thing is that despite this major change, at the critical time when decisions about organ donations are being made, with discussions with the nurses, that the close family members will continue to be involved. So sometimes this legislation is called a soft opt-out. So the family members still have a very important say in organ donation. If you look at the next slide then, please. Now, why do we need to do more? In fact, there was a report on the BAME organ donation for the last financial year. In fact, it was published yesterday. So I picked out the latest data. So if you look at the last financial year, 2019-20, there were 40 Asian donors who donated after death, and there were 84 Asian donors who donated whilst they were living, mostly kidneys, as I said. So the interesting thing here to note is, firstly, they're not very large numbers. That's the first thing to note. The other interesting thing is there are nearly twice as many people who donate while as living donors within the Asian community compared to donors after people pass away. And we don't have this data in a granular form. It just says Asian, because that's one of the challenges we have, because we need better quality data so we could work out who are the people from the Asian community, what faith they are, what ethnicity they are, but we don't have that. Also, if you look, there is a national waiting list for people who are waiting for an organ transplant. Now, most people are waiting for a kidney. Over 80% of people who are waiting for an organ are waiting for a kidney. Obviously, people are waiting for a heart or a lung or a pancreas and so on. But there are over 1,000 Asians who are waiting. The reason we've used February rather than March 2020 is that that's when, if you like, the virus started, and all the figures were obviously, were not reliable. So we've gone for February 2020. So this is the more realistic time. So over 1,000 people waiting, and you see that there were about just over 120 people from the Asian community who donated, either as deceased donors or as living donors. And regrettably, people have to wait. And some people continue to wait for a long time. And the fact remains that every year, over 400 people from all backgrounds die while waiting for a transplant each year in the UK. So clearly we need to do more, and that's why the law has changed in England to opt out. If you look at the next slide, please. Now, what choice do people have now? Yes, because the situation is different. So the first thing is we can sign the organ donor register to indicate a decision to donate organs. That remains the same as it was. You can sign a separate register to indicate you don't wish to donate. As I said, it's a choice, and then people have that free choice. There's no pressure. It's a gift, as we said. But if people don't do anything, then deemed consent will apply. Yes. So I'll give you details about how you register and so on later on. The other thing just to emphasize is which organs you donate. You can choose which organs you wish to donate after you die. Some people say, fine, whatever organs are useful, please use them. But some people might say, I don't want to donate my heart or my cornea or whatever. So you have that choice. So you can indicate that. And the other thing to mention is that this is about organ donation, the standard organ donation, if I can put it that way, because there's new research taking place about rare or novel transplants like limb or face transplants and so on. Those are not included in the legislation. Look at the next slide. Now, clearly, coronavirus has had a huge impact on lots of things, and organ donation is clearly been affected quite severely. So when COVID started, if you start from, say, March of this year, clearly hospitals were under enormous pressure in treating COVID patients, as we know, and therefore there was a huge reduction in organ donation because of the pressure in hospitals. But now that the situation is better, organ donation after death is taking place throughout the UK. Yes, and the figures are beginning to pick up. Living donation is also now catching up. The reason living donation took a little bit longer is that in a living kidney donation, you've got the donor and the recipient. So both of them have to go into hospital, and there's a greater risk, obviously, being in hospital of catching the virus. So, but that, I'm pleased to say, is now happening as well right across the country. Clearly, if somebody dies from COVID, they're not able to donate because the risk is that you could pass the COVID on to your recipient. So clearly that can't take place. But the overall impact of COVID on our community is quite significant, because people are waiting longer than they were in the past, because hundreds of donations which would have taken place normally, we've not been able to undertake them because of the pressure on hospitals. And as I said, living donation is particularly, it's much more common within our community, and living donation has been affected more than donation after death. So there's a disproportionate impact on the BAME community. So a lot more people from our community are on dialysis who otherwise would have had a transplant. Okay, if you look at the next slide there. Thank you. So the call to action, the first thing I would say is, this is for everyone because it's an individual decision. I would say register your decision about organ donation. You can go on the NHSBT, that's the arm's length organization, NHS Blood and Transplant, which oversees all organ donation and transplantation in the UK, on their website, or you can phone them, and then it's fairly easy to register. Obviously, talk to your family about your decision, because as I said, your family will be involved in a conversation with the nurse at the critical time. But what I would say is, do not sit on the fence. By this, I mean that we know that nationally, around 80% of the population supports organ donation. If you support organ donation, then make a positive decision. Some people say, I don't need to do anything, you know, it will be deemed consent anyway. Why let the bureaucracy, if you like, make a decision for you, the legislation make that decision for you? Why, if you want to donate, why don't you positively make a decision and register? And you can talk to your family about that, and that makes it very easy for your family. Can you just imagine the conversation whilst you might be at a critical stage in a hospital, and the nurse is talking to your family members about possibility of organ donation, and they do not know what your wishes are. And that's not the time to talk about organ donation with somebody who is obviously critically ill. So talk to your family beforehand. Now, the good thing about the Hindu community, as Arshaben was saying earlier, that we've got this coordinating group, the Jain and Hindu organ donation group, and we've been taking a lead nationally in coordinating this work for nearly 2 years now. So firstly, very happy to work with anyone who wants to engage in this sort of activity, so we can offer you support. And the sort of support we can offer you is that if you want speakers or if you want resources or whatever, we can do that for you. So I would say to the many members of Hindu Forum of Britain is to think about organizing this wonderful event, which Harshaben has done, something like that in your particular context. The second thing is Diwali is coming up, right? As we know, Diwali is on the 14th of November this year. And we have already started talking to NHS Blood and Transplant about a Diwali campaign for organ donation. We want to make this a significant campaign. So we will be sharing that information with you. The third thing I would say is that one of the things we have been talking with NHS Blood and Transplant is that we need to empower community groups, local community groups, to take a lead on organ donation. But the messages we can send to our community directly are much more powerful and effective than a message from NHS Blood and Transplant or the NHS. So there is what's called a community investment scheme, and it's an arrangement where small amounts of funding is available to community groups to undertake work on organ donation. Currently, we have 25 projects which are running throughout the country, funded through the community investment scheme. And a number of them are Hindu and Jain projects, I'm very pleased to say. And those projects will come to an end in March of next year. So later on, before Christmas, there will be an invitation for community groups to bid for funding from April next year. So look out for that. So there's some support available from NHS Blood and Transplant to undertake this work. And finally, I would say we know how positive Hinduism is about organ donation. All our religious leaders and our scriptures say that we're not just sitting on the fence, we're not just saying it's okay to donate organs. We think it's a wonderful thing if you are able to donate organs and so on. So that's a positive, which for some communities it's perhaps not as clear cut as our community. So we're very fortunate that Hinduism and Jainism supports organ donation. And as I said, amazing work is being done, but we do need to do more. So Shaban, I'll finish by saying, please join us. Thank you.
Kirit Bhai, thank you very much indeed. That was truly informative, and I think all of us have taken several messages on board from your talk, and all we have to do now is to take action in the community.
Exactly.
And more widely. So that is now up to us. So now we move on. We have, I was really pleasantly surprised just a few minutes back because I opened my inbox and I received a letter from Lord Jitesh Gadia, regarding this event we are holding today. So I'll just read the contents of the letter to you, if I may. And it reads, Dear Harsha, I'm pleased to know that Param Shakti Peeth of UK and Hindu Forum of Britain are hosting an event today to mark National Organ Donation Week. This is a cause which I have been actively supporting as a parliamentarian, and I'm delighted that my colleague, Right Honourable Teresa Villiers MP, will be participating in today's session, explaining the myths and the facts about organ donation alongside my dedicated co-collaborator Kirit Modi and the inspirational Jay and Sina Patel. The act of selfless service or seva is one of the greatest traditions in the Hindu, Jain and Sikh communities. And organ donation is arguably the greatest gift we can give to others. The work of groups such as Jain and Hindu Organ Donation Steering Group has been important in raising awareness of the law change and promoting organ donation within our community. We must continue this good work and help foster conversations around organ donation and its benefits with families and the wider community, so that more people make the positive decision to help save lives. While the recent law change is a huge step forward and will no doubt help to improve the survival chances of those in need of organ transplants, it will take more time to implement because of the impact of COVID. Also, legislation alone is not enough. Active promotion, education within the community, and increased public awareness are the keys to ensuring donation rates rise. BAME communities have been more severely affected, not just by the pandemic, but also by the knock-on impact on organ donations and transplants. It is therefore more critical than ever that we help our communities and the wider public understand the significance of this law change and continue to raise awareness about the importance of organ donation and its significance for British Indians. I wish you every success with today's session. Above all, I urge everyone to make a positive decision to donate their organs and save lives. Yours sincerely, Jitesh Gadia. So there, a profound message, and I'm truly thankful Lord Jitesh Gadia for sparing some time and writing that message for us to read out today. So we move on. Now we have a video in which we hear of experiences of recipients and donors. When I first saw this video, it moved me so much. I couldn't sleep and for a night, because the profound message, the powerful message, left me in tears, really. So we'll watch the video, and there are so many messages to take home with us, and here it is.
I'm in kidney failure now. We made the decision to donate his organs.
Post-transplant, positive change.
Make the most of donating some part of our body.
It's up to us to embrace the changes.
Help save lives. Pass it on.
I was diagnosed with Berger's disease. It's a rare condition. Unfortunately, I've had to give up work because of my symptoms. It is quite sad, actually, because I've always been active, always been on my feet, helping patients, and now it's happened to me. I'm in kidney failure now.
My kidney disease would really affect a lot. You can't go to, work how I used to. I can't do the jobs which I needed to.
So I can't carry out everyday activities of daily living. So, cooking and cleaning and maybe washing your hair. All these things does have an impact on me, and it does get you down.
I have been restricted a lot. What I can do, what I can eat, and what I can drink.
Now I'm on the transplant list, and I'm hoping for that phone call, whether it's at 3 o'clock in the morning, just to say you've got a donor. That would be a miracle for me. That would help me to, be back to normal, and give me another chance of, living my life again.
Give a difference to people like me, could have the life quite normal.
There's lots of Asians out there who are in the same situation, and I think it's important that we all support each other and raise awareness together in our Asian communities.
Ashni was 12 years old when she passed away. Loving girl. She was special needs as well.
As well as that, a few years later, she was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. But she never complained in life. She carried on. She was well loved at school. Always dressed in pink. I used to call her my pink princess.
Ari was 3.5 years old when he passed away. He was a gentle, kind, and thoughtful soul. He died after getting caught in the blind cord at home. He spent 4 days in hospital, and we knew he wasn't going to survive, so we made the decision to donate his organs.
When she fell ill this one particular time, they found out
that she had blood clot to the brain.
They tried their best to stop the bleed, but it was too much for them. We made a decision between ourselves that we'd give her up as organ donor.
Just to help others.
We were given an amazing 24 hours more with him, and that time was precious to us. It didn't feel like he was treated like someone who had passed away. We felt like he was still treated like our son.
At no point did we ever feel pressured into donating his organs, and it was our own decision because I felt that we didn't want any other children to suffer. Ari couldn't be helped, but we hoped that he could then help other children and other families be together.
It was our choice. We wasn't forced into it by anybody whatsoever, not by the doctors, nurses, or anybody. And they found 3 recipients. Actually, it was a pancreas, lungs, and a kidney was given.
They were able to use his heart, liver, pancreas, small intestine, and his stomach.
The hardest thing probably for me was telling my mum. My mum is a devout Hindu, and I didn't know because I hadn't had a conversation with her. To my surprise, she said she was extremely proud of our decision. She was extremely proud of Ari.
What I hope Ari's legacy will make people think about is to have a conversation with their families and loved ones and discuss organ donation.
I'm sure it'd be quicker to take one of the heartbeat, so why not give one?
I was on dialysis for 2 years during an important stage in my life. I was prepping for GCSEs, so at times during the school time I'd be coming home doing dialysis effectively 4 times a day. It impacted quite a big part of my life, socially, educationally, and my mother, who was caring for me at the time. So she was part-time working, she was part-time my carer.
And they said, you got a liver cirrhosis. And they said, you might not live long. And I was losing weight day by day and getting slim. I depend on my daughter's wife to look after me. I didn't know the liver come in time to save my life.
All I wanted was to try and live a normal teenage life, and I would hope that one day a call would come for me with that kidney transplant.
After the operation, and I'm quite active, I do the walk every day for 20 odd minutes. And after 6 months, I was like a young boy again.
Post-transplant, positive change, massive difference from being on dialysis. Now I'm able to have my dream job, able to go on holiday, do social events with my friends and family, and I was not able to even think of this being on dialysis.
A low change થઈ ગયા પછી organ વધારે મળશે ને બધાને જિંદગી સુધારશે જેવી રીતના આજે મારી નવી લાઈફ આવી.
So as Hindus, we believe that this body is perishable, the Atma, the soul, is immortal, and nothing will accompany us after death, nothing physical. So why not make the most of donating some part of our body which will be of no use to us and could be of great benefit to somebody else by saving their lives or enhancing the quality of their life. It is indeed an act of great punya, great merit, and will bring good karma to our Atma.
Hindu belief universally is that we're not the body. And so therefore, there are umpteen texts in all our scriptures which promote organ donation.
Dan and Seva are the two key features of Hinduism, and Dan, organ donation, is probably the highest Dan one can do.
After donation, donating any organ of your body, the funeral is normal.
The usual rituals, what we call the Antim Sanskar, Antyeshti Sanskars, can still be performed in the normal way.
એક હિન્દુ સંસ્કૃતિ જ એવી છે જે આ દેહને નશ્વર માને છે અને એટલા માટે દેહનું દાન હિન્દુ સંસ્કૃતિમાં વિશેષ મહાત્મ્ય રાખે છે. તો અપીલ કરું છું કે આપ લોકો આ કાર્યમાં જોડાઓ. આ સૌથી મોટું પુણ્યનું કાર્ય છે. આપ નિમિત્ત બનશો ને કેટલાને જીવન મળશે.
There's a very urgent need for more transplants. In my own area, which is heart disease, a heart transplant for somebody who's got severe heart failure can not only be life-transforming but life-saving.
Organ donation is really considered after everything possible is done to save the life of that patient.
Our main role is to support the family and to support the patient. And organ donation is part of normal end-of-life care. So it's something that should be offered to all families, regardless of preconceived ideas about family dynamics, race, religious beliefs. Those are all taken into consideration.
It is more challenging to transplant people from the Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities for 2 reasons. The first reason is that there are more people on the waiting list because of the diagnoses, in particular diabetes and hypertension in these groups. And secondly, there is far fewer potential donors from these groups. And this results in us having to wait longer for these patients to be transplanted compared to the general population. There are many misconceptions about what the organ retrieval process can do to an individual, concerns about disfigurement, harming and making the person they know and love look very different. I can assure you as a retrieval surgeon that is not the case.
After the donation has finished, the support for a family doesn't stop there. That's ongoing for as long as a family wants it.
It's up to us to embrace the changes with education and making the discussion around organ donation a normal part of our own cultures.
Register your decision on organ donation. Pass it on.
Talk to family and friends about your decision to donate. Pass it on.
Save lives. Pass it on.
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 Pass it on. Pass it on.
Pass it on.
Pass it on.
Pass it on.
Pass it on.
Pass it on.
Pass it on.
Well, that was so profound and so moving. And I want to thank all the people who participated in that video. Every time I watch it, I learn something new. So now we come to a point when we are going to hear from Jay and Sina. You saw them in that little video. Let me give you a little bit of an introduction to Jay and Sina. So they are the first generation British Hindus of Gujarati origin and whose parents were born in Africa and India. And Sina works as a clinical analyst for Guy's and St. Thomas's NHS Trust. And Jay works as an investment banker at Deutsche Bank in the city. The couple have been married for 22 years, I believe. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. And are proud parents of 20 years. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. 20 years and are proud parents of 3 wonderful children, Ari, and twin girls, Laila, is that right? And Asha, Ayla and Asha, very nice. Jay and Sina, they both became involved in organ donation following the loss of their 3-year-old son, Ari. You saw that in that video. And the couple both made a very difficult decision to donate Ari's organs, and which went on to help 2 other children. So I won't say any more. I'll just hand you over to Jay and Sina, and here they are.
Harshaben, thank you for allowing Sina and I to talk at the event that you're hosting, through, as well as the rest of the community through the Hindu Forum of Britain. I appreciate your time, and I know Kirit Modi very well. We've spent a lot of hours together to promote the same single agenda. I see Prafula Shah as well here. We do a lot of work together, and this feels like our another family that we have since Ari's passing. So I appreciate all the effort and support that we get throughout this process. Teresa Villiers, MP, thank you for joining. It is important that not all communities understand and embrace the common language of organ donation. For us, we are Hindus, and we appreciate your support as well. I thought I'm going to be as short as I can. I know I'm on a time limit, and I'll allow Sina to talk as well. You saw through the video that we made a decision to donate our son's organs at what most people can say is a traumatic time. Ari was 3.5 years old. He was in intensive care for 4 days, and we ultimately knew that he wasn't going to survive. But we done something that was quite unique in a situation like that. Sina actually made that decision to donate his organs. We asked the medical teams to do that on our behalf. It wasn't something that was even questioned back to us. We didn't. It felt natural for us that if we couldn't save Ari, we would allow Ari to save others, and that was just our viewpoint. You know, we then later found out how organ donation works and knew a bit more around the whole topic. All I remember is when Sina and I have been married 20 years, but we've known each other 20 plus years. Sina's my first girlfriend, and when she got her driving license at the age of 18, when we just started dating, I remember her having the donor card and signing it, and I was like, you don't want to do that. Why do you want to do that? But I recalled that at the time when it came to making a decision about our son. Now, we never thought we'd lose our son, but we made that decision, and I think we will never regret that decision. To be fair, and I candidly talk about this, it was one of the easiest decisions we made in our entire lives. I've made tougher decisions buying a car. I know that I can't correlate the two, but that's the truth. It meant for us to allow Ari to live on, it meant a lot.
I think that conversation that we'd had 18 plus years ago when we were dating, we had that conversation and we never thought about it ever since then, until that day where we just knew that this wasn't going to end well for us, for our family. And it just kind of came back into my head. And I remember sitting there by his bedside it was 2 a.m. and just thinking, there's probably another family maybe in this hospital at St. George's going through something similar, but they're waiting for an organ and they're waiting for someone to give them that chance. And we can't have Ari back with us, but he might be able to give someone else a chance. And I did feel, just speaking purely as a mother, I couldn't deny another mother, another family that chance. And I felt it was selfish for us to then not say that we wanted to donate his organs and give that chance to someone else. And it seemed quite straightforward for both of us. It seemed like the natural thing to do, because I would hope if we were in that situation, God forbid, or if any of the twin girls were in that situation, I'd hope somebody would do that for us, would think that way, and maybe they would get a chance. And it leaves a legacy for Ari. It leaves a legacy.
One of the things that's probably worth saying to everyone, and some people might not like what I say, but I'll try and give a synopsis of the 24 hours before Ari's surgery and after Ari's surgery, because I think it's important that people understand the amount of support that we had. When we made this decision to allow Ari's organs to be donated, we were amazed with the response that the entire NHS family gave us. We were assigned a specialist nurse. You saw Ari's specialist nurse, who's Jo Cox on the video, and she is the person that we always last relate to in terms of Ari's care. She cared for Ari at that moment up until his surgery, and still cares for Ari today. So in her mind, Ari's still his patient. When we made that decision, you have to often wait 24 hours before they can locate the amount of people, surgeons and medical teams that are required for the retrieval and for the actual donation. So wherever those donors are, they need to obviously prepare them for surgery. But one of the things that we done in that 24-hour period was, we're a large Hindu family. Both our parents have lots of siblings, And I invited every single one of our family to St. George's Hospital. In excess of 150 people came to see Ari in that 24-hour period. St. George's never stopped anyone coming in to see him in the ward, and they said their goodbyes in their own way. But one of the things that's really important is that when Ari went to surgery after that time, we went with him. We went through to the theatre and said our farewells to him. Surgery itself took 5 to 6 hours, and when surgery had been completed, he came back to from theatre to his room. St. George's allowed myself, Sina, our entire family, immediate family, to be with him for as long as we wanted to be with him.
We were able to washed him, dressed him, and like the mums, dads, they were able to just, we just had prayers and just spent time with him at the bedside, and there was never any pressure to you have to leave or you could something that we can't do. So we were as well as Ari, our entire family were cared for very well by St. George's as a whole, and definitely the PICU, the pediatric intensive care unit there. We were well looked after by them. And then also I know, we both know, and our entire family know, that they definitely did absolutely everything they could to make sure that if there was any chance of that he would survive this, that they would try. They would do everything they could to try and get him better in some form or the other. And I feel confident that we made the right decision around organ donation, but I felt confident that they have tried everything, absolutely everything they can to try and get him well and make him better. And we had some honest conversations with the staff there, and I know that they did everything they could for him.
Surgery itself was, people think there's a myth that it's quite intrusive. It wasn't intrusive at all. When we dressed Ari, you could see where surgery had taken place. There were 2 cuts, one just across his stomach and one across his heart there, and that was it. And there were plasters over them, and he was still Ari. He hadn't changed, but we're very. I think we're very lucky to have had Ari. We had IVF, and all of our children are through IVF, and the miracle of medicine allowed Ari to survive on. And thankfully, the 2 recipients that he gave his organs to are still alive. They are doing really well. We have heard from one of them. We haven't heard from the other, but that's okay. Our only wish was that those individuals that received Ari's organs would survive and have as good a life as Ari would and could have. So, for us, it's truly humbling that we had the opportunity to allow our son to live on. And when I talk to people, I say Ari's still alive because his heart beats. It's just he's helping someone else, and that's about it. I think I'll stop there because I've taken up some time. I know there are some questions afterwards which Sina and I can address, but if there are any questions, please post them, or please let Harsha Jani know, and happily address them in the same way that our friend, and I call him Gaga, Kirat Modi, has said, we are always happy to help promote and give our story and our opinion as to what happened to us, because it's only decisions that Sina and I made that make this journey actually relevant in a scenario where there is death. With Kirat Bhai, his amazing wife gave him the opportunity to continue and fully have a functional life and continue this amazing work that he does. But in the same way, it's Ari's death that's allowed us to then promote through this mechanism and numerous others, how making that decision at that important time, which is traumatic at the best for anyone, and see a positive outcome. And that's what keeps us going, believe it or not. That is truly what keeps us going. So thank you for allowing us to talk. Sina, any last words?
No, not from me. But yet, anyway.
We'll hand it back to you.
All right. Well, Jay and Sina, thank you. You know, it can't be easy for you to relive all of that, but you know, your generosity in actually participating in this event is really, you know, I don't know how to thank you. So, you know, and through your experiences, you know, we get inspired, you know, that when it comes to a difficult decision, you know, it's there for us to make, and you know, we must make it and, you know, give life. So thank you very much indeed. We appreciate your presence here. So we next have Teresa Villiers, MP. She's Right Honourable Teresa Villiers. She's a Conservative Member of Parliament for Chipping Barnet. She has been a Member of Parliament for Chipping Barnet since 2005, I believe, Teresa, and she has served in successive Conservative governments as Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Minister of State for Transport, Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And she's also Vice Chair of All-Party Parliamentary Group for British Hindus. And Teresa has been, I know from my own personal experiences, a stalwart supporter of so many of our great Hindu causes, both locally and nationally. So welcome, Teresa. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you, Harsha, and Hindu Forum of Britain and PSP for putting on what I think is a really important seminar on this really crucial issue. And of course, the COVID emergency has been a reminder to all of us of the importance of looking after our health. And it's always been a goal for me and my Conservative colleagues to ensure that the NHS has the resources it needs to ensure that the outcomes for all health conditions continue to improve. And I know that's a goal shared right across the political spectrum. And as you've heard already today, there was also that strong cross-party support for this recent change in the law to move to an opt-out system for organ donation. And personally, I couldn't see why it wasn't done many years ago, but it's really heartwarming to see that that's now on the statute books, and I'm sure is already saving lives, though obviously it having only been in force for the last few months and coinciding with this global pandemic has made, I'm sure, it has sadly slowed down what has been possible, but in the future I know it's going to make a real difference. And I have to say I was so moved by the story of Ari and what Jay and Sina had to say. I feel entirely inadequate coming on after hearing that. It's incredibly heartwarming to hear of Jay and Sina's real courage and their commitment to this, all of this coming out of the terrible tragedy of losing a child. And so you have my heartfelt sympathies, and I want to thank you and pay tribute to you for your involvement in bringing some hope and life out of the tragedy that you and your family sadly, tragically were subjected to. And as you said, and as so many others on this call today have already said, this organ donation is just an incredible gift. It really is hard to think of anything that could be a greater gift than prolonging someone's life, relieving them of terrible symptoms of ill health. So this is an important subject, and I want to reiterate what Kirit said. It is very important for us all to think about this, to consider registering, but also just in simple terms to talk to our family about it, so that there's an understanding of what someone's wishes are before tragedy strikes. And I've been particularly struck today by hearing of the number of people of South Asian heritage who are on the waiting list for organs, and of course to provide them with help and health and hope. It is very important that across the British Indian and Hindu community, there is a willingness to donate and an understanding of what a huge difference it can make to people's lives. Because it's only if that takes place that the waiting list will go down for people from Asian backgrounds. And as I've said, of course, there are fewer transplants, less donation and transplant activity over recent months. But I know the NHS is working incredibly hard to get back to normal, to catch up. Because of the increased infection control techniques, the numbers of operations will continue to be slower than normal. But in this sphere, as in all others, I know the NHS will be doing their very best to be supporting those who are needing transplants. And so I want to just really close by saying what an honour it's been to be able to take part in this, particularly alongside Jay and Sinha. But also I want to remind you of what Kirit said, that there is going to be funding available for more events like this, more events to tell people what a wonderful thing donation can be, that it means prolonging life and bringing life out of tragedy. And so I hope those who are logged in today and listening to this will consider in the future applying for that funding to take the message further across the British Indian community, and so that we can find a way to help those people on the waiting list whose lives currently are blighted by ill health, but who could have their quality of life immeasurably improved by the selfless act of others in enabling their sadly deceased relatives to donate. Thank you very much for letting me take part today.
Teresa, thank you very much indeed. And I think in your last sentence, Teresa, thank you very much indeed. In your last sentence, you underlined, what this is all about. And that is, selfless service, selfless donation, dan as we call it. In the Sanatan Dharma, in Hindu Dharma, this has profound value. So thank you for being here, supporting so many of our great causes. So now we move on. We've got several questions from participants. So it's a Q&A session now. So what we'll do now is I will read out the questions, and hopefully we will have hands raised in terms of from our panel who is able to answer the questions. And I think perhaps I know who to direct some of the questions at. So first off, we have a question, and I think probably Kirit, this is for you. So if you want to unmute yourself. This question says, are there any logistical complications with people who go through a private healthcare route regarding organ availability?
Yes, it's a very interesting question. I think I'm not aware of any logistical problems, but in reality, I think the way the system works is that we have a pool of organ donors, yes, which are available sometimes every day. And NHS blood and transplant has a fair system. It's a very transparent system of how those organs are allocated. Yes. And they're allocated to transplant centers up and down the country. So very often they have to be transported, you know, as quickly as possible. I know even helicopters they use sometimes to transport organs and so on. But they go to NHS hospitals. They don't go to private hospitals. Yes, so that's the first point. And I don't see what the benefit would be of having that done under a private provider rather than the NHS, if you see what I mean. In terms of living donation, it may be possible because that you can plan beforehand. Yes, obviously. And it may be possible if somebody wanted to have that done privately rather than through the NHS, that may be possible. So the donor and the recipient would go and take advantage of the private facilities and pay for that. I mean, I've been through that process. The process is, I mean, it's obviously major surgery for both the donor and the recipient. But my experience, and I've talked to many people about this, is the amazing people we have, the surgeons, the doctors, the nurses, and all the other staff, the way they care and look after you. Why would anyone want to pay when you've got a system which is working perfectly well? But if the question is, can it logistically be done through the private health service, then I would say that probably not for deceased donation, but if you want to do it for living donation, then that may be possible. That's my understanding. Before I finish, HFB, can I just give you a piece of good news? In the video, we saw this wonderful lady, Jyoti Jadhav, right? She's been on dialysis and so on. And she dropped me an email, I think a few days ago. She has had a transplant, a kidney transplant at Hammersmith Hospital. Yes. So as we speak, she's probably in hospital, getting ready to come home. So there's a fantastic example of somebody who, you know, has taken time to talk openly about this and promote this and so on. Wonderful lady. So I'm absolutely delighted. So these sorts of events, I think it shows, you know, they are happening, and despite COVID and so on, you know, we're getting these fantastic success stories. So I'll pass my good wishes, and I'm hoping to talk to her in the next few days.
You have to unmute, Dr. Harsha.
Yes, so thank you very much indeed. Perhaps, Kirit, this next question is directed you as well, directed at you as well. And maybe you have touched on this somewhat, but I'll read out the question. And the question is there any regional data about faith community donations?
Yeah, I think the answer is no, but I think it's a little bit more complex than that. And let me tell you where we are at the moment. You will notice that when I was sharing the data about organ donors, I was talking about Asians, yes, rather than any particular faith. Now, unfortunately, we don't collect data for donors and recipients by faith or by ethnicity. And we know that grouping everyone together in the Asian category, it's of limited use, yes, particularly when you want to target the sort of work which we're talking about, specific communities. So we have been raising this issue. We need more granular data on ethnicity, and we need data by religion. Now, we have been raising this for some time with NHS blood and transplant, but I regret to say that we've not been successful to date. And perhaps I think I can request Teresa Villiers that perhaps we can seek your support to see if we can move this forward. I think the case is so strong that we need this data. Yes. So for example, the amazing work which is going on throughout the country, and I mentioned these 25 projects which are taking place at the moment. How do you measure the impact of those? Because there are targeted communities and so on. And we're not able to do that. So we don't have data nationally, let alone regionally.
I'm happy to come in on that. I would be very happy to raise this matter in Parliament, because it is, I find it very surprising that that granular data on the sort of the ethnicity and background of both donors and recipients is not collected, and clearly it's very important to ensure that we're doing our very best to get the right health outcomes, to do it on the basis of good data. So that's something I'll definitely raise in Parliament.
Thank you very much. Perhaps we can, with Shaban, we can take this offline. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have a question which I think probably Jay and Sina can address. And the question says, a common conversation that once the organs are donated, there is very little consistent support for parents and relatives traumatized by death. Is this true?
Our experience, to answer the question directly, is no.
Not for us.
Not in our experience. No. The way people deal with grief and death, it doesn't matter if it's a child or an adult. In any situation, is always hard. I can tell you from Jo Cox, who's Ari's snod, we still have contact with her. So that relationship that she had with Art for care of Ari and care for us as a family, that continues. She still is a snod, even though she took a break from the career over last year. In addition, the PICU do constantly keep in touch with us. We found, we found this additional family with NHSBT, but that's because we are quite open in how we want to promote our story and through the connection through Kirit and others in this same community. With respect to kind of the individual grief and dealing with that, people don't talk about mental health, especially in our religion. It's very hard. It's a very taboo subject. Sina and I went through something that's so traumatic, especially in the circumstance that Ari passed away, and then the circumstance of letting him go very much 4 days after he was playing in our living room. So dealing with that is actually very hard. And we've, the NHS have provided us psychology services. And we did use those services for a year. And the psychologist that we had was from the pediatric unit at St. George's. She still keeps in touch with us 4 years, coming up to 4 years on. And she'll always ask us how we're doing. Over and beyond that, our GP has been,
GP.
She's been very helpful with constantly making sure that we're okay. So that's just us. Now, if we talk about the wider family, my mom said once, as soon as Ari died, she said, "Why not me? And why me instead of him?" I can't answer that. No one can answer that. But I think, we as a community, we do have a large network of support around us. We're very fortunate to have a large family. And it's that family that's allowed us to do this type of thing, that to be confident, to speak. And I think we're lucky in that way, to have the support of our entire family throughout this whole period. And they continue to support us when they go through trauma themselves in whatever circumstance. So my answer to the question is no, in every way, from family through to medical teams and the NHS family that we have has truly helped us in making sure that we're not suppressing those thoughts and talking about these things.
There is, just so quickly to add, we are on a donor family advisory group, which is run by NHSBT. Then they're looking at how to make the support for donor families. So this is just for donor families, how to improve that support down to the letters that you receive immediately after donation and then the letters that you receive a year later. And they're looking at every aspect of all the support that is provided just for donor families, and they're trying their best to improve it. It's just made up entirely, that group is made up entirely of donor families, from young children donors to adult donors. So there is definitely, they're trying to improve all the support they provide for donor families.
So it's really heartening to hear that, you know, there is that support available, you know, not to feel that you are alone. Yes, you have a great family support, but there must be, you know, hundreds of families across the country who's, you know, who have donated, and, you know, they feel that they need support. And it's so good to hear that there are people across the country who, within the NHS and volunteers, who are able and willing to help with this. So thank you for that insight into your experience. It's much appreciated. Thank you. So one more question, after which I think we will start saying our vote of thanks to everybody. This question is, I think, again for you, Kirit Bhai. The question says, how has COVID-19, maybe you have touched on this, and perhaps you can, you know, expand on this a little bit more. How has COVID-19 affected transplantation services and processes?
Yes, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think clearly from March onwards, March, April, May, those were the most challenging times, I think, when hospitals were under immense pressure in dealing with the implications of the pandemic and so on. So living donations stopped for a while, but donation after death again reduced, you know, greatly. But they didn't stop totally. So there was one hospital which carried on and so on. But then, as I said, as the situation has eased a little bit, now every centre in the UK is offering organ donations, which is great news. In terms of how hospitals have dealt with this, clearly the most important thing is that, you know, anyone going into hospital, let alone for major surgery like donating, you know, if you're a living donor, donating and receiving organs, or even receiving organs, yes, from a deceased donor. It's a major surgery, you have to be in a hospital for several days. And clearly the priority the hospitals would have is to make sure that the patient is kept as safe as possible from COVID. It's the last thing you want is somebody going through a surgery having COVID. So they had to create COVID-free areas within hospitals, yes. And logistically, this was a huge challenge, and I must give great credit to amazing work being done in our hospitals by doctors, nurses, and all the other staff in trying to make this possible. I think they're really dedicated people, and I know many of them personally. Amazing people who are really dedicated to doing the best for their patients. In some cases, and it links to a question about private health. I know the Royal Free Hospital very well, and for living donation, what they did was they didn't have the facility in the hospital itself, so they bought facility in the London Clinic, which is a private hospital, right? So they didn't do living donations at the hospital. They were their patients, but the actual donations and transplants took place quite separately at a private hospital, which I'm sure the NHS would have paid for it and so on. And that was COVID-free. I was talking to the consultant who is in charge of living donation at the Royal Free, in fact, earlier this week. And he was saying that now they're going to bring that back into the Royal Free itself, yes? So you see the sort of logistical challenges hospitals are facing. And we're not over the pandemic, right? We don't know how this is going to turn out. But I think my personal view is that it's important that we don't go back to the situation which we had in March, April, and May, because things like donation and transplantation are part of what should be happening in hospitals routinely. And if that backlog, if you like, increases too much, then clearly that backlog, the impact of that backlog can be greater, if you like, than the opportunities you get to look after COVID patients. So getting that balance right, I think, is something I'm sure is going to be a challenge for all hospitals. I hope that covers the gist of it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, thank you very much indeed. No, I think, Teresa, we look forward to some more government information support, etc., vis-a-vis, the organ donation arena, and more conversations of the Hindu community with the government, because, we've got so many community people, individuals, organizations, temples, who are willing, so we need the support from the government.
Yes, I think it's very important that the NHS, the government, the sort of public health authorities and the Hindu community all work together on this great challenge. And I will continue pressing both the NHS locally and the government nationally to try and get our healthcare system back onto an even keel and back at basically at full capacity. Clearly, it'll be hard to tell until we've got through the winter pressures whether there will be a second COVID outbreak, which will slow things down again. But if we do manage to get through this winter without this additional outbreak, I very much hope that we will see a sort of a pretty rapid return to normality in the NHS. But as Kiritbhai has said, there is a lot of activity back underway, so that's really welcome. But there is more progress we will need to make to get things truly back to normal in the NHS when it comes to transplants.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Through the chat box, we are seeing that people are really keen to hold events. We got a message from Kaushikbhai Chakraborty, and he says that, during Durga Puja and Navratri, which comes before, and as everybody knows, Hinduism is about festivals, it's about celebrations. So along with the celebration, we will be sharing these strong messages about organ donation, and it's really a call to action to our community to register the decision, discuss, encourage, and communicate the key messages about organ donation using social media, radio, TV, every possible platform, and obtain support from the public, for deemed consent. So all of this is in the pipeline. Yes, Kaushikbhai, we will definitely be taking on your suggestion of holding an organ donation event during Navratri, Durga Puja. And I remember last year, Teresa Villiers very kindly supported us during this local Navratri festival, when again we held an organ donation event during the Garbas in Navratri, and she and our local councillor Roberto came down and supported organ donation and the Navratri festival. So all of that is in the pipeline. There is a lot of keenness to get going on this. So we just need action on the ground now. So now it leaves for me to hand over to Truptiben Patel. Truptiben Patel needs no introduction amongst all of us. She's the president of Hindu Forum of Britain. And Truptiben, we welcome you. Well, you are part of this event. Please, would you like to say something about organ donation and indeed, how Hindu Forum of Britain can engage?
Yeah, thank you, Harshaben. Namaste, everyone. I'm so, it is humbling to be part of it, because you're all aware that we started in earnest in 2007 or 8, where Hindu Forum actually did a launch at the Param Shakti Mandir in West Drayton. And that was the first video that came out. We had quite a lots of discussions before when everything came out. There's a wide range of communities where they used to think that the body has to be cremated in as much as possible in the whole form. And we did a campaign of that misinformation. And I kept stating the example of Sage the Rishi. And all of us know the story, and I also mentioned it when I gave tribute to all of our NHS staff, that when he donated his bones to kill the evil, how could we not donate all the organs when the person passes away? And my personal experience is when my father passed away in 2015, the first hour from the hospital, he was in India, in Gujarat, at Sardar Patel University, and the body was taken to Krishna Hospital, and his eyes were straight away taken out. We were waiting outside, and then the body, then they said to us various procedures they did. We didn't have any time for priest or anybody to come home, and this is what father had decided. But you'll be so surprised that the whole university town, with thousands of teachers, professors, workers, they were all decided to do that. Can you imagine that? That is in India. And they all decided to give their bodies to the hospital for organ donations and for all donations. So when I started working at London Borough of Ealing, and in early 80s, the Department of Transport did a drive of the organ donation, and I still got my card somewhere, and we all agreed to it. And from that point onwards, I thought, right, this is something that helping the Royal Institute of Blinds for the guide dogs and for the organ donation are the two things that our community should really come out in force. And I'm so happy that Kirit Bhai's work, and to Dr. Harsha Jani, to Param Shakti Peeth, is absolutely sort of sterling work that is going on. And Kirit Bhai and I am always in conversation on the email.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Absolutely necessary that all Hindu Forum member bodies, and the idea comes to my mind straight away while we were going through the process, is that the Diwali this week is in the interfaith week. So we're going to host Diwali on 11th. But I'm thinking that we could actually host as a Hindu Forum and the Jain Hindu organ donation. I'm sure Lord Garya and Lord Dolakia and everybody will help us. And Teresa, you always help us. So I'm so grateful to you always. And I think we should actually host an interfaith event. But let's think about it, that how are we going to take it further? I think during the Diwali week is a fantastic idea, and we can ask all the temples to take that on board. And I'm also seriously thinking that what we should be also doing is, and Veljibai is on the phone here as well on the Zoom, that when we do our Diwali magazine, we want to put this about the organ donation in a page, and we really want to do that, because that would go to, as you know, far and wide, to nearly 8,000 to 10,000 people and a lot more. So let's just do that, and let's all work together, and let's all say that we're all with the people who require the organ donation, whether it's alive or whether it's after the life. And listening to Jai and Sina, I think is so moving. Our community, I know that they do now totally and 100% behind this organ donation. So namaste everyone, you're doing sterling work, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
We'd just like to take a group picture in a gallery mode, if that's okay. If anyone has any objection, please let us know. Just take a screenshot. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so now it's time for me to say a vote of thanks. You know, it's been an experience for me, and not only have I learned so much, but I think, you know, there are profound messages that I can personally take to the community. And all of us have you know, seen that personal experiences, you know, how the government can get more involved, how the community can get more involved, how we can, you know, indeed increase registrations on the organ donation register. And I think the target is about 12,000 by 2021. So, so, you know, let's all do it, and, you know, let's not wait for somebody else to sort of push us in any way. And we must increase, you know, the numbers of people who are encouraged to become living donors as well. So, you know, this is truly important. So I want to thank Teresa Villiers and, you know, for supporting us and all our events always. I wish to thank Kirit Bhai Modi. You know, you passed on such enlightening information to us, and today, you know, when I leave this room, I know that, you know, I'm going to be thinking about this. Our community is going to be thinking about all the messages that we are going to pass to our organizations. And Jay and Sina, as always, you know, your message is something that we all, you know, can learn from, and our community can say, yes, you know, this is a decision when it comes to it, that we must make a decision, participate in organ donation and spread the message, and, you know, have conversations in the family and in the community. And also I want to thank Trupti Ben. Somebody said to me just now on a phone message that I hadn't introduced myself. I'm Dr. Harsha Jani, and I'm trustee of Param Shakti Peeth of UK, and I wear several other hats in the community, but I won't go into that. So all that leaves for me to say is thank you everybody, whether you're watching on Facebook or here in this conference room here. I want to thank each and every one of you for, you know, taking time out to listen and, you know, share these few hours with us. What I'd like to do is ask Arya now. Arya, right at the outset, she said a beautiful shlok. Just before I, you know, finish, I also want to thank Lord Jitesh Gadia for his letter that he wrote to us. So thank you, all of you. Arya, over to you now for the shlok.
I think Arya is not available. Harsaji, if Triptiji can say a prayer, please.
Harshaben Shukla is there. So Harshaben, do you want to please?
Yes, so I'll say a prayer.
Harshaben?
Yeah, Shukla, Harshaben Shukla.
Yeah, both Harshabens.
Namaste everybody, and Jai Shri Krishna. And while this is all about getting us together and doing together, so I will say the prayer about us being all in one boat. Om Sehna Bhavatu Sehnau Bhunaktu Sehviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinam Vaditamastu Ma Vishavhe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very good afternoon to you all.
Thank you very much indeed. Have a good evening. Namaste, pranam,
Thank you,
Jai Shri
everyone.
Krishna, Sat Sri Akal.
Nicholas, it's such a
We'll close the call now. Thank you.